Okay, the Open Space Commission meeting for September 23rd, 2024 is hereby called to order, and we begin with roll call. Vice Chair Thomas. Commissioner Norton. Here. Commissioner Fox. Commissioner Runbeck. Commissioner Wallen.
Here.
Commissioner White.
Here.
Council Member Representative Harris. Okay, roll call is complete. We'll now do the land acknowledgement statement. The Flagstaff Open Space Commission humbly acknowledges the ancestral homelands of this area's indigenous nations and original stewards. These lands, still inhabited by native descendants, border mountains sacred to indigenous peoples. We honor them, their legacies, their traditions, and their continued contributions. Celebrate their past, present, and future generations who will forever know this place as home. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the August 26, 2024 Open Space Commission meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries and the minutes are approved as written. At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject that is not scheduled for the commission on this day. The Arizona Open Meeting Law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking action on an item which is not listed on the prepared agenda. Commission members may however, respond to criticism made by those addressing the commission, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. To address the commission on an item that is not on the agenda, please wait for the chair to call for public comment at the time the item is heard. And that,
Hi, everyone.
yes.
So I'd like to take a quick minute and just recognize Ashley Flinney, who is our new colleague. And we just hired her not too long ago to do the work for our educational program with the Heritage Grant Fund. So she'll be working with us for the next couple of years. So I don't want to come up and say something, just say hello.
I'm Ashley Flinney. Grew up in Kansas. I've been living in Idaho the last 7 or so years. Just in the last 10 years being part of education all over the US. So it's me, Idaho, Georgia, Kansas, Texas. Yeah, came to Flagstaff a year ago to raft the Grand Canyon. I was like, it's pretty awesome. Found this job. Yeah, really excited to be here. Already done like 13 field trips in my month of working and done 4 different booths, like event things, and already have most of October and November getting pretty full field trips and other events with kids around town.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much. Well, she's already doing, she said, you're around running and doing a lot of good things.
Fantastic. Welcome.
Excuse me, how did you spell your last name?
F-L-I-N-E-Y.
I just wanted F-L-I-N-E-Y.
Great. Anybody else? We will move on to the business items, and the first is the BBB tax renewal, and this is a discussion item. So with that, I'm sure who's going to take that. Okay, great.
I will take the time for you, trying to share my screen here.
Okay.
Anyway.
Not, well, we can choose, I guess, I'm the left.
All right. So wanted to share with you all our the educational campaign that we are going through right now for the BBB tax renewal. Obviously, this is important. You all remember that we just recently, through the city council, updated the Open Space Commission. We call it the commission authority, but it's the language that identifies what the commission is their mission and what they're working on. And we were able to update the BBB tax language to include open space in the Parks and Recreation definition, meaning that we can spend funds from BBB tax on open space. So all of that to say now, this commission is in charge of reviewing and approving a portion of the BBB recreation tax dollars that comes to our division. Parks and Recreation has a portion, open space will have a portion. That's what those funds are, a little bit about what Robert's going to talk to you about in the next agenda item. In a way that we went through this with Parks and Recreation, that was very helpful, and we're trying to do the same thing with open space in prioritizing those funds. But I wanted to get in your hands the information on our education campaign so that you can go out and share the word. I think I've sent some information to you all over email already. So some of this might be old news, but I wanted you to hear it at a meeting. So we've put together a series of 24 print ads or flyers that each one is numbered so that people understand it's part of the series. And each one focuses on a different aspect of the BBB tax funds and how they're used in our community and how they benefit the local quality of life. All in an effort to educate folks about how BBB tax funds are raised, who pays them, how they are paid, and where they go to filter back into the community. So on the right here, you see this is an example, and we've got a did you know section of the ad that shows the reader how the BBB tax is collected, which is it's a 2% tax on very specific categories in our community. So hotel, motels, campgrounds, short-term rentals, restaurants, and bars. So we've also got a QR code that takes you to a new website that we've established, bbrenewalflagstaff.com. That also goes through each of the areas where BBB tax funds are distributed to and how those groups, how those divisions spend those funds, including Parks Rec open space. It gives these very nice visuals in the middle here of depicting how the funds are spent. So here you'll see Buffalo Park, some wetlands, some of the foot trails. We talk about things that we think locals will care about. So the 60 miles of foot trails are maintained using BBB tax funds. As an example, since locals are voting on this tax, we want to make sure locals understand how these funds are benefiting them constantly. The other thing I wanted to point out is that 68%, I try to zoom in here. 68% of the collected BBB is paid by the visitor, but all of the proceeds are reinvested in the community locally.
Is this a county tax?
This is city.
It's a city tax.
Yeah. Just within city limits. Okay. So here are some examples of the, so here are a couple of the Parks and Recreation we did. Some of our colleagues over in our economic vitality team came up with this new logo, and you'll notice, I'm just going to zoom in because hopefully you'll see this and recognize. This is the 5 different areas where BBB tax funds are spent in this outer ring, Parks and Recreation being one of them. That includes open space. It's just called Parks and Rec within the code language. Funds also go towards beautification, economic development, tourism, and arts and sciences. So you'll notice that these flyers, the education pamphlets are the same. but with just the pictures and the background color changing, but the information is the same so that it's repetitive and people will start to pick up on it and recognize it. Over here on this one on the right, it's focusing more on our recreation center, specifically J Lively Ice Arena, which is programmed and maintained using both general fund and BBB tax. Other examples, this is one of the tourism focused advertisements showing the benefit of the tourism notices. They've become very prominent, especially in the last few years, about telling visitors how we want them to behave when they get here. So be fire aware, leave no trace, pledge for the wild, ecotourism focus. So they've been really focusing on that, which has been helpful to us, I believe. We've got culture and heritage identified and highlighted. Economic growth is highlighted. Economic development programs like chooseflagstaff.com has business incentives that go to our local businesses. We've got beautification and arts projects and grants that are available for locals that help beautify our space, our local spaces. They also fund a lot of nonprofits that you can see here on the right through our partnership with Creative Flagstaff. So those are just a few examples. This is the marketing plan. So we're doing both print ads, social posts, digital ads, email messaging, Harkins, Mountain Line Bus, NAU, business cards, and more. And we're really trying to direct people to that BBB, that website that I noticed, the BBB renewal flagstaff.com. And then they glanced at that website to see what it looks like. It's really quite beautiful and simple, easy to read. You'll see this is the Parks Recreation event landing page, if you will, when you click on that one for more information. That's what I have for you today. And are there any questions?
So you really think that putting these on our own little very inactive social media accounts would actually help?
That's up to you. I'm just letting you know what we as staff are doing. So city staff cannot advocate for a vote. We can only educate.
Okay.
Commissioner, as an individual citizen, can advocate, just be very careful to not act like you're being part of the commission when you're advocating for a vote. But I can't go out and say, oh, yes, on whatever proposition. So I just wanted you to understand that educational campaign that we've put together, how it's being used so that you have that information. If your friends or family ask you, like, what's this whole BBB thing and why should I care? Hopefully now you have some information about that.
Okay. I mean, we can say, hey, there's this really important task, and here's information about why we should support it, or why I'm going to support it.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It looks like a real comprehensive approach. And the fact that so many parts of being negative education law. I haven't heard, because it hasn't been out there that long, I haven't heard anything at all. You know.
And feel free to talk to any that you do here. Election day is November 5th, and please vote. Yeah, I mean, I think it helps that we have an exceptional creative team within our economic vitality division that houses the rest of where the BBB tax funders.
And the taxes are in place, it's a big investment.
Yeah, it's been in
doesn't
place
use-
since 1988. We're not looking to increase it. We're not recommending, council did not want to change the allocation. So Parks and Recreation gets the largest share of it. We get 33%. Tourism, I think, gets 30% as the next largest share, and then the other divisions divide the pie.
What is the arts and sciences? Is that science week? Is that week on science?
That's just one example. So beautification, arts and sciences are all managed by our beautification team. They have a commission, just like you, that takes, so they do grants out in the community. A lot of the grants go through creative Flagstaff. They also do other programs more focused on that arts and science, but it's really that integration of beautification, arts and sciences together.
I do like the metal boxes around town and getting the artwork put on them.
That's exactly an example of one of the projects that we do with BBB. A lot of murals around town, same thing.
I correct, in that we're going in early in case this doesn't fail.
Yeah. So the tax expires right now in 28. So we're going at 24 now to extend it from 28 for 15 years. In case it fails, we can have another election in 26.
And the tax is 10%?
2% on
That's
top of
10%.
local
Yeah.
taxes, yeah.
2% of the tax.
And on that website that I mentioned, it goes through a full breakdown of our local sales tax and what it looks like with and without the BBB tax. Not to be confused with any, and this has nothing to do with minimum wage, it has nothing to do with any fees that some bars or restaurants might be putting on their bills. This has been in place since 88 and we're not looking to increase it. But if it doesn't get renewed, either a lot of programs go away or have to be funded by the general fund.
How much is the general fund now funding for?
It's a large portion of our daily operations. There is a transfer out. So in a couple of months, I'll bring you an updated 5-year plan where you will see the BBB recreation transfer out, which is to the tune of about $2 million for daily operations and maintenance. But what the BBB fund really focuses on funding is capital projects.
Just a little history. I was on city council when this was passed, and the great deal of balancing between money for economic development and beautification and tourism. And the tourist industry and the restaurant industry, their problem was it's going to increase whatever they charge. And you know, when you go someplace and you pay something and it's advertised as this, when you pay it, it's this. Well, that's where the 2% is coming from, and that provided a great deal of concern. But it was all worked out. And as we've seen, it's really been a boom for all of us. But I think I haven't heard anything from the tourism industry, I mean, from the hotel industry and restaurant industry. Any negative thoughts? Yeah, have you, their associations?
So I did present with our economic vitality director. This is the table I wanted to show you. To the Northern Arizona leaders Association, less to be known as the Flagstaff 40. I think that was a pretty good pulse. There was some concern from hotels and restaurants about having to charge this tax, but they do understand the local benefit. And frankly, they get a lot of direct local benefit from the tourism ads that are out advertising their services. And so we have lots of ad campaigns about, wipe the smile on your face. That's a restaurant campaign. They've got a brewery campaign. They've got a hotel campaign. So that's all bringing visitors directly to their businesses, and they do have that understanding. But they do get the difficult question sometimes, like, why? Why is your tax rate so much? I'm trying to scroll this over. Why is your tax rate so much higher than when I was downtown buying a pair of boots? And then I go out to dinner and I've got this higher tax rate. So they're used to explaining that though. And here's that breakdown of percentages that I was referring to the different programs. Any other questions?
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation.
You bet.
Next item on the agenda is the project prioritization and multi-year project planning discussion. Robert, is this you?
Yep.
That's a little bit of a tongue twister there.
Yes. And this really kind of falls in line with exactly what Rebecca was sharing with us. So thank you so much for getting us started, Rebecca. This really is an update on the status of open space for maintenance projects, new amenities and acquisitions. And this presentation that I put together will hopefully support a discussion of the commission's effort to help us develop like a 5-year capital improvement and plan that will focus on the open space commission's priorities and that hopefully will relate to our needs as far as open space maintenance, restoration, and the open space system. So this is related to the city code that Rebecca was just going through that supports the BBB tax revenue. So if that's passed by the voters, we will get a portion of the Parks and Recreation allocation for open space. So we're very excited about this.
When would that happen?
I think that has occurred now, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
we can start spending available funds now.
So this presentation will support hopefully Open Spaces Commission's effort to review and identify priority maintenance state projects, new amenities and acquisitions that the BBB tax revenues could be allocated for. So I did a very quick review of our management plan and looked at like our high objectives that were listed in that management plan and tried to pick the things that I thought were more like capital type improvements rather than just ongoing maintenance. So we can look at something that's more like a capital type project. So the next step in the process may include identifying a priority list to work towards. That might include acquisitions or rezones or easements for specific types of projects. And then considering what tools, what would be best for each priority. So for instance, if there's a priority that we can really rely on grants, maybe that is something that we will consider in developing the priority list. And then developing a final project list with cost estimates. So the desired end result of this work would be the production of something similar to a 5 or 10-year capital improvement plan focusing on community open space priorities. So that's just a brief introduction. So I put a presentation together and it is somewhat dense, but hopefully this just get ideas flowing and give some point for us to start. So you're all familiar with our 3 original reserves, Fisher Canyon and Mid Mesa. So that's what we're visiting. So here's our mission. So connecting our communities through parks, recreation, natural areas, and programs, and creating unique experiences and places to play. So, and then below that, you see some specific open space goals there as far as protecting and restoring Flagstaff and doing education, and also creating an integrated open space system. So this is kind of like what the foundation is that we're hoping to build. So I broke this down into two categories: deferred maintenance and then new types of amenities or acquisition. So by deferred maintenance, what I refer to as a backlog of infrastructure repairs or asset maintenance due to budgetary limitation. And the deferred maintenance projects that I chose are like larger type projects. So not like a small section of fence repair would be included in this deferred maintenance that I listed in this presentation. But a large scale fence repair, like installing a boundary fence around a section of observatories would be included. And then you see some other examples there as well. Parking lot, chip seals and crack sealing, large scale fencing, large scale type trail projects. Recreation, large scale restoration projects. We have lots of other small deferred maintenance projects that are not included in this, since we're looking at more capital.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering if you're saying a series of small projects, but fit under one descriptive. And that would be considered a large.
You can include that in a large project. I think what we're trying to avoid is the GDP fund, our allocation for that being completely utilized just for ongoing maintenance. So. And the list that I've developed for tonight is by no means comprehensive. So if you have other ideas and things like that, that'd be great to hear. And then the second category that we're going to talk about is new amenities and acquisitions. So this includes like upgrades or something that's newer, like a new property. So examples might be like a new parking area, a new trail segment or system, such as the through from is a new fence that maybe we don't have, a bridge upgrade maybe for example, like at Fisher Canyon, or an open space properties. So this section is the deferred. There's not a ton, not a lot that I've listed in here, just because of those restrictions that I mentioned. So this first one is the parking and entry road to Fisher Canyon. This has not been a project that's been in need of repair for some time, and it's a very expensive project. And this portion of the road is kind of no man land. It's not technically maintained by the city, it's not technically maintained by the county. So I think that this particular project might fall under we want to try to maintain this really a park area for people. And if you all want to stop and talk about it, of these one more, so I'm just going to go ahead and run through that now. Trail, with large scale trail projects, we are working on our PT grant currently for training just minor repairs, but the overall trail system does need more attention. So that could be one of the different items that you choose to find out. What is RTP? So recreational trails program grants, special grants, parks. So that could be an option to stop it. The other deferred items are property restoration. So we have an ongoing project at the where we're restoring old roads and trails. But there is the real flag corridor that needs vegetation attention. The observatory Mesa West grant that we're currently working on there, doing some restoration work, but it's certainly not going to cover all of the needs there. That picture actually is taken from Observatory Mesa. It's one of the chipping piles from some of the early forest restoration projects that we're working on cleaning up. Very big project. We're also looking at doing maybe feeding along the Foots Trail and the Isabel Street, maybe to get rid of some of the Siberian telephone that we're facing there. A tree buffer along the Veterans Home, I think could be one of these projects as well. To help provide buffer along the Foots Trail. And then another project that we could consider would be the restoration of tanks of some sort for based for wildlife. That could be done in tandem with preserving. So that's our focus for the deferred maintenance items, and then the following list are new amendments and acquisitions. Do you have any thoughts or questions about that first part?
Well, I just wondered in the grant writing process, I mean, a lot of times you hear about shovel-ready projects. Like in this whole process, are we trying to get projects into like, do we want projects to be in a shovel-ready status, or is it okay to have things like, well, these trails could do with some help, or maybe you should, you know, like, I guess I'm just wondering, like how far down in need, like where do the project, just in general, where do the projects need to be in crisis mode so that we could get funding to them? Like, I mean, what's the, do you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't want it to crisis mode, so like, how do you know when a project is, this would be a good project and it'd be good because we could do these three things and it'd be fixed? Versus like, I don't know, we don't even know like how to start fixing this project yet. You know, the first version would be a lot better because I feel like if you spent money, it would be more effective. Versus the second one, which is like, I don't, like, this has so many different pieces going on. I just think those are two different categories of a project that we should consider. Some that would be really effective really quickly and some that are gonna take a long time to plan. And that would really help with putting some in which category.
Yeah, I think as we go through this prioritization project, we can talk a little bit about like each of the projects and where they're at.
Okay,
I think right now we're just gonna have kind of like a general discussion about them, about all the different types of projects that we could look at.
okay,
And then we gotta get down in details.
Okay.
As we like continue down the road.
because that's
So that
about
is
like,
important.
you know, like things that we can go do.
And so we can fund with grants, ones that we have a trail plan for, and then we're ready to go, and, you know, ones that are sort of about.
Versus one like that road maintenance, like who owns, whose property is the road on, those kind of like minutia has to be figured out, okay?
Question, right? Can I add to
Yeah.
that? Is your
Okay,
related to that or?
It's just more of a, no, go ahead, I'd add to her first.
So what might help give some context, and we've been talking about this coming for a long time, so Robert and I might be a little bit in the weeds, no pun intended. To bring this back out in context, what this exercise will be helping us do is prioritize a brand new for open space 5-year and 10-year plan. So based on the projects and the priorities, whether they're shovel ready, that will help us start to piece into that 5-year plan where they go. So those projects that you prioritize as high priority, but we know they're gonna need some planning. We know it needs to be in a 5-year plan, but we might put that in year 3 or 4, for example, to give it time to work up to that. But what I think you're going to see is that we have a lot more needs than we have dollars, right? So we're gonna need your help in identifying what are the priorities. We're not gonna ask you to, we're not gonna give you a cost estimate necessarily with every single project, because we want you to think about it as this project is a priority, whatever the cost, and then we deal with it,
okay,
with how to work it into.
okay, that's really helpful, okay.
And that kind of answered my question, because I was thinking, how do you get the bids? How do you know how much it costs? And, you know, does that play a part in our priority? Do we want to throw all our money into, you know, parking lot and road restoration? Or, you know, knock out a bunch of smaller projects with that money? So I see where you want us to head. You want us to prioritize the project itself, not necessarily how much we can get done with X amount of money for the cost of those items.
Okay, thank you.
And I'd like to follow up with both comments. And what I'm saying is, can we have potential pots of money? In the general fund, we have potential pots of money from grants, and we have now money from the BBB. And you were saying, okay, we want to pick projects as far as the open space commission is concerned. It doesn't do what general fund want to do. But also, what I'm hearing too, what I'm thinking is, we also don't want to use the BBB money for things where it might be an obvious grant opportunity. And so we have all of these things together, and I'm most familiar with Observatory Mesa and less familiar with Picture Canyon and quite familiar with McMillan Mesa. But I would like you guys a list of things that are waiting to be done or concerning you. You've given us some ideas here, but I'd like a printed list somewhere. And I also think it would be, at some point, that there should be some discussions outside of the commission meeting, because that's only 2 hours. If we're going to eventually come up with a 5 to 10 year plan. But I'm also interested in spending money as soon as possible on certain ones too. So there seems to be a whole lot of work for the commission to could be doing now in the next 4 to 6 months, 3 to 6 months. So that's my comment.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner White. So the process that we're going through, we'll get you a list. The Parks and Recreation Commission went through this process when they were building the Clinton year plan. And then fit it into number once, right? Like to get to the point where they're
3. Yeah, so to answer that, I would say be thinking about this as like what we're going through, what Robert is going through with you today is the list. Okay, so he's gone through and identified and worked with his team and worked with me to put into this presentation the list. Eventually, there may be some nuances, right? Something that you all think don't belong or we add to it. There certainly could be things that we missed, but consider this presentation your first look at the list. And then we'll follow up and provide you with an actual list, like a 2-page list with brief description so that you remember what these are.
And if you can share this.
yeah, I didn't get it done though.
No, that's fine, because that would help with like, what was that? Oh, I need that picture. Okay.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. So really, this is the first step to start to try to absorb what we think the needs are, see if we've missed anything that's obvious. Help us really flesh out this list. We'll provide you with this list next. That'll be the next step. And then if you all agree, we'll go through a similar process like what Parks and Rec did, where you rank things. And I won't ask you to give things a 1 through 100, where you can only have a top priority. What we'll ask you to do is on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this project to you? Please don't give everything a 10. Like, please come with a little bit, but you don't have to pick just one. And then we'll aggregate your scores. And that will help us see in the commission as a whole. These are the top 10 projects, and that's probably what we'll put on funding and add some dollars to them. And if a bunch of your projects that are priorities end up being in a way that we can categorize, like Robert's talking about for maintenance, might end up being a category that we don't have to strictly define projects for that. We could just set aside like $100,000 a year for different maintenance, and then as things come up or as we identify these priorities, we just go ahead and start knocking those things out. That can happen. That's what we did with Parks and Recreation. So that might be a category that you can slip some of these smaller or less capitalized projects into. And what Robert's starting to get into now is truly like larger scale, higher dollars, capital type projects that are beyond just maintenance needs that we haven't got to. Hopefully that helps a little bit. And then also remembering that grants can always leverage these dollars. Or these dollars can always leverage grants. These dollars can be our match for grants that require us.
Yeah, thanks for all the questions. So the way the next few slides are structured, these are the projects, the new amenities or the upgrade amenities before doing the acquisitions. So these first ones are facilities such as the parking, that we've been talking about James Creek, and then the property trade that's associated with that. And having some facilities at that particular location, upgrading our toilet, and then we are currently getting a temporary toilet there, so like something more permanent. I try to put these in kind of some big categories, but signage is that one, we need signage replacement and upgrade at Fisher Canyon. That's a pretty expensive project. We don't have any signage on McMillan Mesa. We did write a grant this year to the state park system again for the education C grant. That's could fund a project that McMillan Mesa up to $10,000. So that could be used as additional leverage for completing a sign project on McMillan Mesa. And then we have some pretty big fencing needs at Fisher Canyon and Observatory Mesa. Mainly the need at Fisher Canyon is to let folks know that they're entering a conservation area and also to keep motorized vehicles out. This location kind of from the middle of the western boundary all the way to the corner here has no fencing. But the mine there, when we purchased the property, there was some tailings already coming over onto Fisher Canyon property. We bought the property kind of knowing that, but I think we do need a delineation so that the mine knows where the property line is. We don't get additional damage to the reserve. And then we do have motorized traffic coming in from a number of locations around the perimeter, which we do want to eliminate. Observatory Mesa, this is just kind of give you an example here. The red kind of dots are places where it needs a fence boundary repaired. So we have pretty deep venting kind of coming along section 6 here on the west side. Then we get to section 12. There's decent fencing mostly on the north, and it's starting on the west side. And then that kind of yellow line there, there's no fence at all. If you go to section 12, there's tons of motorized vehicles driving everywhere off the main road. And when I was out there just a couple weekends ago, there's got to be 50 head of cattle just on section 12 because there's really no boundary. So that is one thing I think.
Razor, the observatory is the same days.
So fencing project, I think, are important for those purposes. Trails, we have the observatory plan that we're working on currently. If council approves that for that could be a great project to fund. Other trails at Fisher Canyon, we have a site called Locust Speed that our management plan has identified providing a trail spur to. That's kind of off the switchbacks of the down Beaver Trail. And that would require archaeological permitting and whatnot in order to complete that project. The bridge replacement at Fisher Canyon at some point in the future could be a project that might be considered. And now I'm going to move into conversations. Unless you guys have any other ideas that you want to pitch. So I think you're all aware of these different categories, but I just thought it would be to recap them. So we don't observe supposed being large space parcels that are central to the greater system, for example. Any connectors, national corridors that connect the integrated space system, for example, those could be foot systems, launched, physical science floodplains, and then complementary open space, either really smaller open space parcels that provide value to the neighborhood space system. For example, those could increase technical access to more national areas, technical huge. So those could be smaller, piece of the property that perhaps the whole community doesn't really access on a regular basis, like can provide parking and a trail system there. This could be a small piece of property that a particular neighborhood really benefits from by having a place that's within walking distance of their homes, their neighborhoods, and letting them get out on a daily basis for recreation. And it doesn't necessarily, these don't necessarily need to have like a recreational system incorporated.
Didn't we talk about that when they were talking about putting that bridge over the south side? From the line, over the train tracks and putting in a park underneath in that area because there's no open space over there.
And I think that was our discussion. So I would think that this category is similar to our category that pocket.
And we could collaborate with that. I mean, if we have similar ideas as another sister agency or department, then they kick in some, we kick in some. Something could happen.
I don't know for that particular project, but certainly, yeah, I think like there's lots of opportunity in the partner. For instance, I think we had an idea developing a long-term mutual reserve of doing affordable housing to affordable housing. Thing that they sort of things. I think there's a lot of the department on many of these.
There is on that, idea of the luxury overpass in particular. Yes, there's a need for pocket park, any sort of parks in that neighborhood, first of all. That overpass does provide an opportunity. I don't know how much open space opportunity, but certainly a park opportunity. But there's also a lot of opportunity for collaboration with beautification. In what that park looks like, and we're actually doing more and more of that on the park side. And I think there could be a really interesting element of beautification of the open space as well. You know, along a pathway, there could be a sculpture garden or something within a beautiful open space area. Just as just a random idea that came to mind.
Well, I was thinking bioswales.
Yeah, we can even request some water, yeah. Certainly, and that's why I'm at the table, because I've got those connections with our leadership team and I can help bring in those partnerships as well.
But nothing on this list would include, well, I guess you got it here. Like, but I think about that whole new development that we heard about from planning and zoning 2 meetings ago. You know, and the people that live in that area are concerned about the L herd and how they won't have that kind of space anymore. And there's, you know, it's gonna be a big, well-developed area, and it would be nice to talk about open space access before it becomes a well-developed area. But, and if we have the funds to.
I think that's a specific project that Robert is getting to.
Oh, sorry.
So here's our map of what the open space system for Flagstaff could look like eventually. You see our property there and how incorporated with what's happening. Our potential new acquisitions, connections, and potential company is. Yeah, the 3 parcels there are kind of in that, there, but that's, well, that's the land department and kind of like as potential regional for that regional place.
That is useful. But this is like this, I mean, a scale like that, because it shows where it be possible, where we lack open space, and things like the southwest side there.
We've got 45 in the southwest, which is.
Yeah, that's different than city open space, and I'm thinking about the state land that just was auctioned off by University Heights. And University Heights, what is that? where it would be great to get some open space in that area. That would help. You make the fourth level and it's right in an excellent place for existing urban trails. They already bracket that area. And then as Jackie was pointing out, with Fourth Street extension is, is, you have a state land is pretty hard to come by. But right next to that lower west state land block is where that Fourth Street. Now, it's above where that Fourth Street development area is. And boy, it seems like it'd be nice to have some green right in there too.
Yes, this map kind of shows you like what a system could look like for Wigan. Yeah, like what you mentioned here in the southeastern quadrant, we're lacking a regional preserve. So these three properties are the state properties that are in that location. And then there's the drainage areas and connectors as well, which is what you'll see in the next line. So these kind of in dark show the basic connectors between Fisher Canyon and Buffalo Park, and from Buffalo Park and Mesa, Observatory Mesa, and from Observatory Mesa down to Tut Hill, and from Tut Hill potentially over to our what we're going to Walnut Canyon Reserve, and then from there back to Fisher Canyon, and then interconnections between this next. I showed the main drainages in Flagstaff that are usually great for utilizing or trail connections as well. In fact, if you look at the next map here, you can see where how those align with the current Flagstaff loop trail. So how we're thinking about integrating that trail system into this as well. And then here is the foots integration. And I realize you're looking at it. So I'll send this over to you so you can take a look. But this just gives you just an idea of like what we can achieve. There's a lot going on. So I'll just start with the regional reserves. So in the past, the committee talked about looking at properties south of I-40, particularly the south of Flagstaff. So here we have Walnut Canyon, this is section 30 of State Land Department. So that particular property starter, I think, was listed as the top priority because it's closer to the neighborhoods there and would provide more people with that 10-minute walking access time. We also have looked at those properties that are just to the east of those. So those are on the list as well. Section 22. These would be very particularly expensive acquisitions. Maybe that just, but and then
A lot of people talk about those pieces being very important acquisitions.
I would mean,
Well, like, there's gotta be a bunch of people that want to buy and develop it. But, or the mining company, or somebody wants to have it.
there's another big land parcel here. If we didn't outline.
Yeah.
That's identified in our regional plan or regional development. So we did not include that in the analysis for this particular area. I think it would be nice to incorporate some open space and connectors, like when that property gets developed, but that particular one is in our regional plan.
So but in the regional plan, these state sections are not.
Not currently, right?
They identify as, they're within the city limits, right?
Yeah,
And not identifying at all in the.
I think the current regional plan does identify some base for potential open space, but it seems like as we're updating the regional plan, we can't identify them as a part of potential open space. Because there's.
And what's the comment? You know, what's the comment that I heard about those ones that are current, stuff like that? And when Director presented to the PhD, when they weren't clearly identified for major development because of fire risk, because, you know, the fire risk in the city of Flagstaff comes from the southwest. And so they weren't really eyeing that, for major development. But developers often have different ideas regardless of fire risk.
So the draft plan, and we are trying to get Sarah to kind of talk to you directly.
Really good one.
So the draft plan does identify this part of town in general, so kind of has a color overlay of this part of town that identifies a need for cultural and natural preservation. Is that what it says? But it doesn't identify specific parcels. That was the best way that we could that's what we're looking for, get open space interest on that without violating state law.
This area has been on the commission radar for, as a priority for a long time. It had a lot of complications, particularly cost. So, it might not be the best fit for PPP fund allocations, but I just want to put it out there because I know like it's something that's super important in Michigan that I think there's value in especially.
Also, the timeline, something like that is based on observatory base, so it is 11 years between the application and the actual deed. So it's not something that, it's something that could fit into a 5 to 10 year plan. Or longer.
What observatory base at Picture Canyon had, though, that we do not have anymore is the expired grant process.
Was that one?
The 32 million, like, that 32 million is 20 years. If we're looking at $400,000 a year. Or this big, I don't do math over my head, but that's a really long time. And I'm not doing any projects up until then.
Yeah, and we go, you know, probably unknown price there, time. Yeah, I forgot the response.
Well, let's go move on. So the next category is the connectors. So just to give you an idea of what, we're looking at having a connector that comes down maybe along the good line. So, CAS analysis, the commission kind of looked at this particular reviewing a prioritization for investment for a bond fund. So it might mean, looking at properties kind of along us to report. So this is all kind of old news to me, I think, but we identified primary connectors when we were meeting with our concrete commission a couple of years ago to develop some language for potential bond. Didn't have anything before, but we have the priority connector 1A, which is the one that came into Fort Hill connector. I'm going to run through it quickly. The connector from McMillan Mesa to Picture Canyon. Priority connector 1C, which is between the Observatory Mesa and McMillan Mesa.
Isn't that kind of hard to do?
Some of it is, yeah, and then it would looking at additional green space along there. Priority connector 1D, which is that Picture Canyon to a potential regional preserve kind of in the southeast corner there.
Is the connector, this, how you're talking now, the same as a foot trail or is it something?
It could be, yep, it could have a foot trail in there. It doesn't necessarily have to have foot, it could be something like a single track trail as well. It just is a way to connect people to the main regional preserves. And create it like an interconnected system. And then there's this connector that some of which already is in place for the Observatory Mesa to Hill. The Inner Canyon or actually McMillan Mesa to Canyon.
question about
Yeah.
one of those areas. So, we briefly mentioned where the state land parcel had been sold over off of Woody Mountain Road area. And so knowing that that's like been sold to a developer and then like the county is working on their master plan, what to do with their trails in Fort Tuttle and beyond in their county area, but then it abuts to city property, and now this state land piece that's for development. What role does the city have, or you guys have as any sort of input into connectivity that would be created, whatever comes out of Fort Tuttle through their master plan, as well as whatever's happening in the future with that parcel that got bought by Roberts Communities?
Yeah, the parcel that was recently purchased, I think, is going through our community development review. In that process, I think staff can provide input. I think that may be Mark in spirit of its connection. We work closely together, so he knows that we have a priority to connect to Teresa for Putnam. So a lot of those like asks would mirror each other. But I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, where these connectors are really gonna come into play is with the adaptive transportation plan includes a lot of these missing connections. Where open space to add to that is, say, for example, we've identified a trail is needed here. We'd like to provide a wider corridor, so no the space buffer. Along with the connectors with the foot being the focus or the trail, it doesn't quite have to be a foot. But the adaptive transportation plan has a lot of teeth in it for developers because it's been reviewed and adopted by council. It's a planning tool that they use in reviewing these developments. So as developments come in an area that has a trail that's already identified and approved, Art's team and the planners will look to that plan and then extract that somehow from the developer, either by us paying for an easement and paying for construction. There's a lot of mechanisms where they dedicate an easement and pay for construction, or they go or it serves as their sidewalk or things like that. There's several ways that we can try to get that property right.
And as a side note, the county is having their trail planning public meeting on Saturday at Fort Tuttle. So just kind of like what we did with ours, I plan on attending, so.
And I did attend a focus group for that planning process as well. And that's the master plan training. That's for everything they're getting on certain that's what.
It'd be interesting to see like what they do with Fort Tuttle and whatever their county piece of the land that is up to that, but then obviously get into the city to have connectivity between those entities and whether it's county land, the Roberts community, et cetera.
And we do work well together. The county parks and rec director and I meet regularly to discuss what each other is working on. Which they're also connected with parks.
Yeah, and as we work to develop our master plan, I think we'll be thinking about a lot of that, how we work, how we should rework with the county. These particular maps, although there's some conceptual, we should develop these in partnership with markets. So that first couple slides I showed, we probably will have the trail already there, like the trail and the urban trail system. That shows like how we started thinking about that.
I just like to share my anxiety. But over the years,
Yeah.
it's been very high in certain times and then it's dropped down. The pressure for growth and the pressure for growing fast. I right now have a great deal of anxiety. If you don't space now, trails now, it's awful hard and expensive to get in later. And it just seems time is late, every time I go to a PhD,
Yeah.
walk away from trash. And it's not just our growth, it's to have our input in there strong and sound. And I know we've got folks on city council that are real supportive of this. But it has to have the technical and the logical basis to do these things, and work with developers and work with the planning department. And I just, I got away from it. That also causes that anxiety, because I just don't know how I can really, in a concerted effort, I know detail how I can try to do some things, but it just makes me nervous.
Yeah. It's true that, I think like doing maintenance and projects has a lot of value, and there's like a lot to be done for keeping up our property and maintaining it. But if that means losing an opportunity, purchase the property, that's something maybe that the commission will want to consider. So maybe purchasing a piece of property does have, higher value in some cases.
Harder than not,
But
And any of the future planning, like, open around, all the development that's gonna go on off of Fourth Street, I don't know what's called. Like, we talk about trying to make sure they vote this way, then they're on there. But is there a way to mitigate, like, if we decided not to do that, we have like, give us $800 to the best state land fees? Is there any sort of mitigation like that in there, where you're like, okay, if you're not to do that, then you have to do this?
You can't legally require them to
Yeah,
get open space.
I just.
we don't technically have a city code that requires a developer set aside true open space for the community. So if we had a city code that had some language, then perhaps like that would be.
I mean, the state doesn't restrict us.
We're very limited by, like, private property owners have rights to develop their private.
Oh, yeah.
Which is city very limited, especially by the state of Arizona. I really can't require them to do, and then Mary knows much more about that than I do, I think, but, yeah, we're limited as well. The best we can do is have an updated master plan. I think the regional plan is a good start. Then we need to follow up with an updated pros master plan. So Parks, Rec, all of it is in the same boat though. Open spaces, we're not getting new parks in these areas either, which is shocking, awful. There's not been any recreation center since 2008 when this place was built. There's no rec center south of I-40. So yeah, and Parks and Rec can have impact fees, whereas open space, I don't believe is in that category. They can't. So, but Flagstaff doesn't collect those.
Yeah, I share all of your anxieties, because I see the developments and the master plans that are, pieced together along the way, and when they're done piecemeal like that, there's not a greater plan. And even though there's like, Juniper Point Master Plan Community and Canyon Del Rio Master Plan Community, they're all approved individually, and there's not that connectivity, and there's not those, open space type places, that are there. So that's, and not being able to ask for it either by state law, city code kind of thing, that's where they don't have to design it that way. Which always kind of was shocking to me, because I came from a state when the master plan community was developed, there were those kinds of places. There were schools plotted into master plan communities and parks and pocket parks, and that was all part of what developers did, and it just doesn't happen here, and I find that very frustrating.
Right. Well, so I also, I gave more question just reflect a little bit on our more on priorities we did, analysis of the commission, to update that ordinance. We did select some priorities for that 2004 bond fund, knowing that, we couldn't accomplish, the first priority, that we worked on the second priority and so on. So that process that we went through, I think, is valuable to revisit, since, in our priorities, we can we will likely kind of be considering that again. So, here's the map that we developed with that. On the left there, you can see the priorities that we developed. The young Steve Powell was the first priority of the commission. That includes like the Hawk and Tank area that we're currently talking with community development on. In that development process, that's the one big third of that. So that was the top right in here. Trying to work to allocate some rental for bond fund to that corridor that we connect Forest Service through at least 3 different private property owners to the city's trail system near the I-40 wetlands. And then we've got kind of the 1 and 2 priorities that the commission identified. That's the state land parcel just south of I-40 there, and then the properties around the Continental Park that could potentially help the park expand and then make other space available to open space. The Fort Top Hill 1, which is the kind of location here, where you see that little crescent. This is essentially greenway along the current foot system. So those connectors that we talked about, even though, as you know, some of you mentioned that some of those trails are there, what we really want to do from a standpoint is provide a natural experience along those foot trails. We don't want just a trail, a sidewalk next to a road. We want to provide something that has more of an actual feeling that makes Flagstaff unique. So that's kind of what we're working on this particular location. Then Towns of Winona was the next priority. That's this connection coming up from Picture Canyon with the Towns of Winona community. And then Fort Tuckahoe 2, that's kind of the little blue areas that you see that are further down as Fort Tuckahoe. And then among the defensive bond projects, we did prioritize these because we were already working on them. But I think it just makes sense to mention it here that the Picture Canyon Foots corridor is something that is important. That's that connection where there's a purple coming out of Route 66 that would allow the Foots connection to occur. That's something we're working on. And then one of the real estate recently, I believe you want to start changing that and provide the facilities for the connecting fence trail to the orchards. When we went through the process, we also talked a little bit about some of the map on the next 2008 connector. Yeah, there are some additional ones on this particular map that were not on the list that I just talked about. For like priority number 4, I guess. And then this was the expanded additional base connections. So there's a lot of maps there.
Question about Schultz. Trailhead, I dropped out of toward the end of that conversation in the last meeting, but that trail that goes over the detention basins that we all kind of had some concerns about, did that become the maintenance of the open space division, or, you know, how did
I
that?
haven't worked in those details out internally still, but it probably makes sense from the standpoint of making trails that look like the parts and parks.
The arts or parks in general?
Well, I think parks maintain all of the foot trails that
Parks maintains, but not any, we don't have any single track that we maintain now.
But that trail over the detention, that's not Foots.
it's not, no, it is a park trail.
Which is why it's difficult to assign it to parks. I mean, we've got one person to maintain the 60 miles of foots as it is. It's a sticky one because it's a stormwater structure. What level of responsibility do they have, if any? Pros does not really have any other amenities out there anymore. It's not an open space parcel anymore. So other than it having a recreational component, what's our connection? Because there's lots of recreational trails around here that pros has nothing to do with. So it's the city's working through that one right now.
So really, once it became detention basins, it completely dropped off of our quote, ownership or management of. Except for that trail, you know.
I mean, the property is still zoned as public open space, but because like 80% of the property is detention basins, like we really don't have much of a say in management of the property. We did have a lot of plans for that particular location at one point. And those are kind of, I think the best way that we can be involved in the process is the trail connection and the parking. Providing a parking area for, like, as a trail hub in that particular location. And there are a number of trails that connect, obviously, Forest Service trails, the Shins Creek system. But the folks that would be coming off of 180 and then potentially even a trail that would come from San Francisco through some private property to Shins Creek. Great, where that's the case.
While we're on that topic, has anything progressed as far as our discussion about that trail along? And
Yes, and if you don't mind, I'll cover that in a two from just so we can stay focused on this. Okay, so that was the end of the category for the connections. So I think we worked through both the regional preserves and the connectors. And these are just broad strokes here, but there's lots more to be defined. But then I did want to touch basically on this category that we call the complementary open space, which could be a property that's not well connected with that whole system, and it's not like a regional preserve. So it's kind of this like loose category here. And so I think of this as could be like an empty lot, privately owned or state owned, that the immediate neighborhood is used as a recreational area on a daily basis. And so YMCA is located nearby here, but the city owns a parcel right in here. And there's some private property owners, and this is just like me looking at maps here, so this is nothing hard and fast, but we could create like a neighborhood here, essentially. That's what the community plan used to call it, neighborhood. And another, I think, of the properties that we've been talking about is the Schultz Creek Trail. That actually is, I think, a connector, but it could also be. I just wanted to mention that particular category. We haven't done an analysis for Flagstaff where these would be located. So this is like a category that would need a lot of work. However, these are smaller. Ideally, these would be smaller parcels, kind of interdispersed throughout the neighborhoods. So the BBB fund allocation might be able to make a little bit more headway in this particular category. So here we are. So this is the kind of big picture. Our regional preserves, the ones that we have, and what we hope for, the connectors, and then what's not displayed on here, but we can work towards is some of these complementary open space parcels.
The thing about the complementary open space parcels is that it's really good marketing open space, because you'd have an impacted area, and then whole community, they think, oh, look what we have all of a sudden, like you raise awareness among, I don't know, 800 people, instead of getting in. I mean, there's no positive or negative versus a conservation natural area, which everybody in Flagstaff would really know that. I don't know, just there are those kind of things to think about, I think, and what's the biggest bang for our buck and support in the future as well.
And it's that category that's most similar to the pocket park. So, I travel to Bushmaster Park and Thorpe Park to take my kids and recreate there. I don't typically go to the smaller pocket parks, but the neighborhoods really utilize them a lot. And I think it really aligns well with our goal of providing this 10-minute access walking time. We might not jump in the car and drive over to Picture Canyon or through Tornado in the evening, but if we're going to go for another walk after work, these pocket parks or these pocket open space corridors, I think are going to be very valuable to our community as we need that developed.
You need to make a category.
the pocket of the space.
Lots of spaces.
So, that really
There was
concludes
a word
our
that was
discussion.
trying to make away from.
Yeah. That concludes like the slides I put together for you. I know it's a lot of work, a lot to look at. But I really was hoping that this would be kind of the introduction to, where we could take this conversation. And maybe you would help us identify what our approach is, like whether we want to like be project focused, whether we want to try to disperse funds between acquisitions and projects, or some other way. And for us to figure out how do we rank and prioritize these particular items in a way that makes an impact over time for the community and also helps back some of those concerns that you have and how we do that, how we move forward. Yeah, and how do we separate maybe deferred maintenance from new projects or new acquisition? So I'll leave it there with you guys. Let you figure it all out first.
So Steve, I think it totally makes sense to obviously have two different categories of maintenance versus new, because some new things, once they're acquired, they move over into maintenance, and maintenance is obviously ongoing, whether it's something that's annual, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So I think identifying, things that need maintenance, and getting them on a schedule so we don't have this backlog that we currently have now that there's funding coming to us. And then, having a separate category of the new priorities or new targeted areas.
Like a general category, like a general maintenance category.
Yeah.
It's so much.
Do we separate deferred maintenance from new acquisition or new maintenance? What do you mean by that? That's what.
I think I was thinking about like how we break up projects in our funds, whether we want to maybe defer maintenance, which are the new projects. Whether we want to differentiate between the deferred maintenance and the new project. Or new acquisitions or projects.
I have a funny question. Does the city allow for official nonprofit partners, the same way like the National Parks have, the Grand Canyon Conservancy and Yosemite Association, Yellowstone Association? Is there anything in the charter that would allow for Flagstaff Open Space Trust or some enterprising nonprofit person to establish and work with the city on?
Yeah, it's very similar to like Coconino County Parks and Recreation has the Friends of Coconino Parks and Recreation that is a third party nonprofit fundraising type organization. Our Parks and Rec does not have that. We could definitely we could do that. But difficulty is it's difficult for staff to drive that. So it would need to really be really come from the grassroots effort and because support that we can't necessarily staff it, et cetera.
But it's allowed to have like a nonprofit partner that could supplement funding, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. This is just an opinion comment. I would lean towards acquisition of maintenance because that's if you look at the old Air Force model of building bases and then running out of money and saying, well, we have a base and now we're going to keep the runway because the base exists. If we acquire land and people start using it, they will say, well, I will now support the money for the trail because I don't want to walk around here in the middle of nowhere and getting all torn up. But on the front end of it, if you say, hey, we're going to put the thing in, I know there's like a desire to sort of polish up the existing things to demonstrate that we care for and maintain the stuff that we have. But these are large capital costs. And to your point, growth is coming whether we want it or not. And so the ability to acquire, set aside, and then figure it out later, from my standpoint, I would lean towards acquisition. If you got enough capital to buy any of these parcels, I pave the road later and get the parcels on the books. And then people want to enjoy it and they go, oh, well, we don't have money for a trail. Well, I will vote for this bond because I like walking every year. And it is set aside and it does exist. So I would lead in the direction of acquisition rather than polishing up everything that we have. It'd be nice to do both, but that's where the resources and requirements are.
I think it'd be a good idea to get an estimate on maintenance, maybe on some of the things, so that we know what kind of number that is. But I think there was a nonprofit trust that could exist where people could, if there was property near them that they would see money spent on, then they would support that versus even having a bond. I mean, even really like, developers will donate to the trust to, they can sell.
That's exactly that's why you need a trust, because they're not gonna give the money to the city. Nobody's gonna voluntarily pay a tax to the city, but they will give $500,000 to the open space trust, or whatever you call it, friends of,
It's easier for them financially to do that.
well, much, and it's exactly. It's
And
much
they
better.
can have a donation for specific projects that they're interested in supporting
Yep.
as well, so.
And it's a goodwill gesture and all the things that the PR folks would absolutely capitalize on. It's just a establish, I mean, you look at what the Grand Canyon Conservancy does, and they operate however many stores for $14 million a year retail operation. That's like,
People make $1 million, a single individual will make $1 million donation to develop a trailhead at Grand Canyon National Park.
yeah.
They're that passionate about it, and there may be those people that buy stuff.
Yeah, and it doesn't carry the same, like, the open space supplies, that city doesn't carry the same cachet as a Grand Canyon or a Yosemite, but at scale, just, reduce the scale a little bit, all these maintenance things, you can definitely raise money to pave a parking lot, right? Or to do these other things, while the other money that's available goes to capital acquisition and aggregating it so you can get a 18 or $19 million parcel.
But it'd be important to know what our maintenance costs are that we have been deferring. So I just don't even know what these numbers are. I mean, we don't know what's coming from B, like, I feel like it's sort of nebulous, but it would be nice to know that a $50,000 a year projected cost for maintenance of existing infrastructure, or are we talking 13,000, are we talking 100,000? That would just be nice to have an idea or less on that.
Wasn't it like a 600,000?
Like something else.
Well, no, what's available, what's available from the last BBB recreation 5-year plan that I saw, where we looked at available ongoing capacity that I have. And in our mind, we set that aside for open space to prioritize. It was $400,000 a year of ongoing. For you all to help us prioritize offset.
So, yeah, it would be nice to know what our existing infrastructure maintenance costs might be. So we could prioritize new purchases. And I'm pretty keen on this pocket park thing. But I also think big chunks of state trust land for the service and actually building a whole circular system.
A question with regard to grants in general, is it easier to get grants for like, let's say the fencing around Picture Canyon? We know we need fencing and we get an idea of how much it's gonna cost. Is it easier to attract a grant or qualify for a grant for something like that, as opposed to, we wanna buy this parcel in the future, help us?
Yep, sure is. Yeah, it's much easier to get currently grants for projects on existing property. There's been grant opportunities for land acquisition.
That said, the grants available for maintenance type items are typically pretty small. So I don't, right, like RTP is like $100,000 with a match required, so if you're looking at that to, I don't know, put a whole new fence around Picture Canyon, it's not a very.
Although we do, you can work with like the Beholder Association or Pheasants Forever or all sorts of wildlife groups on fencing. They're keen on fencing, the right kind of fencing. And just throwing it out there with the Forest Service, it is, and NRCF, it is the Fed, they're starting to put money into virtual fencing. And that's not gonna help us with off-road vehicle stuff, but, there's like, fencing is a thing that people do talk about. But wildlife groups would help with fencing because they want it to be a particular kind of fencing. And they want volunteer projects. So Antelope Foundation, particularly up on Observatory Mesa, they may be really keen to help in getting things in. And GameFed will help you with that. I know some of the people there that get those projects going. So that's some fencing funding.
What about like a partnership with like the Nature Conservancy or Forever Wild or anybody like that that's interested in? Like these, I'm just thinking about these big chunks. I'm down with talking parks too. I just think from an impact perspective and completing this idea of kind of it's circling Flagstaff with open space. And those are big capital investments. Could a partnership with somebody like that potentially contribute a couple million or?
Nature Conservancy only is gonna do it if they really see benefits in the way of like resources, like does it have an endangered plant? Or the Nature Conservancy is not really keen on purchasing land that provides recreational access.
True, yeah, I'm partnered with them now, 5,000 acre park.
Okay.
So I got down and dirty with them, but like, we were able to find common ground. You know, they didn't, we want trails or whatever, but they did, you know, that's kind of halfway. To do it, so I don't know, I'm just throwing ideas out here, because this is great, I mean, this is very well thought out, it's just like the gap between what we have and what we need is tremendous. You need to go find an aircraft carrier and sell it.
Kim Reynolds is with TNC, and she's really easy to talk to, and John's over here too.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so these are all great, and I think that we can, we as staff can continue working on other funding opportunities. But with the funding opportunity that we have in front of us right now, which is this open space ongoing funding that's now available, if we could try to, I understand it's a hard thing to wrap your head around it, leaving Parks and Rec and everything conversation. Including about creating a friends group and things like that. But if we could look at it, and I don't think you have to do it today. I think this is a lot of information for you to kind of digest. I think we'd like to provide to you, not just this presentation to review again, but also a more succinct, like a 2 to 3 page list of the projects that Robert has laid out here. And we can try to put some numbers to maintenance to give you an idea. But like we could say fence repairs per linear foot, you know, and think about it that way.
Well, it's $30,000 a mile right now.
For a new fence, so then what is it for maintenance of an old? You know, like we can provide some of that information if it's helpful. But what we'll need you all to do is help us with where to prioritize. And I think this is all kind of leading up to that ranking exercise, which maybe we can do here next month. If we can get you this list of projects and enough time to review and kind of have a good feel for what you're thinking about it. What we had the Parks and Rec Commission do, which was very successful, was we said, make sure you bring a device, whether it be a phone or a laptop or a tablet, to the meeting, and we gave them a QR code that they scanned, and it took them to a survey with the list of projects and a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rank each? And we just did it in the commission meeting, so that if they got trouble, and we made sure they got it done. And then the next meeting we came back with the results.
So can I go back to the large acquisition question? If we have $400,000 a year earmarked for open space and we're looking at trying to purchase something for $8 million, like how does that work? Like, you have to save the four, I mean, yeah, you have to be like a normal regular person and save the 400,000 every single year until you have enough money to buy it and the cost has gone up, or are there other systems that work?
Well, certainly we would think yes to and the basic answer to the question is yes. You can say, this is our top priority, this is all we want to save money for, and it will save up and carry forward over time. And then hopefully you're able to buy that piece of property when you have enough money and everything else aligns. We would also be looking at funding opportunities, grants that would help purchase that property to help get us along a little bit faster. But yeah, that is something that the commission could do.
But that's how that works. There's no other way that works.
There's only one other thing I've been thinking, this is something I just learned recently, and that is like, for some developers in town, they buy the right to buy the property. And I don't know how that works, but I know
For
like,
state land.
for the state, yes, like, so for 405, currently the developer there bought the right to buy the property and has not bought their property. But they have first bids for buying the property.
That's
So
not
they're also showing their cash flow with development to show that eventually they can buy out the property. Is how I think it works. And I don't know that being able to buy it in 50 years at $400,000 a year. And I'm not trying to make light of it, I'm just.
And are the features of that parcel, I mean, do they lend themselves to the type of open space that we want? Is it developable property, I mean, yeah, I don't know enough about, the topography or what that parcel looks like. To say, yes, this is something that's on par with McMillan Mesa and Observatory Mesa,
Well, and keep in mind, the city council will approve our 5-year plan. We will also approve any acquisitions that move forward. And I just want you all to keep in mind that council had a housing emergency declared and a climate emergency declared. So politically, would our council be in favor of city open space purchasing a whole full park, perhaps very developable state land parcel and not allow that to be developed for housing with hopefully some open space elements to it? I think that's a hard political.
There's also discussion on working with the state land department to get them to upzone state land prior to going to sale, like everything's rural residential right now. To have them upzone it so it has more density, the assurance of more density when it's sold. And if that becomes, then that becomes even more attractive as a development piece.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we had an idea of like partnering with affordable housing projects, like to make it maybe more desirable, like maybe we're not protecting the entire parcel for one of the walnut community, but maybe we work out some kind of arrangement to have affordable housing on the parcel and open space integrated some way, so that could potentially be part of the solution.
And that would cost us money. You would buy part of it.
I would assume there would be a partnership. Okay. Assuming there's maybe some of it for housing.
It's $400,000. That's for them per year.
That's a conservative estimate based on the last 5-year plan that I saw.
For open space.
So it's the new revenue that's been coming in that based on our 5 and 10-year plan right now, which is currently only populated with parks and recreation capital projects, is available in excess of that. So it's new revenue, it's new capacity within that BBB recreation fund that I have been holding for open space. instead of like adding it to Parks and Rec projects or something.
So what is the number that we should have in mind as we think about priorities and costs and things like that? What is the open space number?
400,000.
It is 400, and that's considered.
Would it be sensible for us to look at what Parks and Rec's priorities are in the way of acquisitions? Do they have any?
They do not have any land acquisitions. No, other than maybe the Continental Park area that Robert mentioned. But they haven't set aside funding for new land acquisition, no. Parks and Recreation's problem, honestly, is we have some city lands that have been designated for parks. We just don't have the money to develop it into a park. So that's where they were focusing first.
I'm wondering if, maybe it would be more realistic instead of, putting our eyes on a whole state land parcel that, like kind of what we're having to do out of that Symmetry 405 parcel, we're trying to have some influence to maybe have a piece of it, around Hoffman Tank and a wildlife corridor, and whether that becomes something that we have to purchase from them, as a piece of open space within, or however that gets handled through planning department and Martin and everybody like that. I'm not sure how that is all panning out, but I'm wondering if there's a way to, just get pieces of things, bigger pieces, but not a complete, 400-acre parcel like what typically goes for sale in a state land chunk.
It is weird to buy 640 acres of a square piece of land.
Yeah.
So do we wanna, are we gonna wait, we to sort of defer this priority discussion for the next meeting?
Brad, do you mind talking about the next step for our next meeting?
Yeah, so I think our next step, Robert, is to come up with that 2-pager, kind of that teach the cliff notes of this presentation. With the project and a brief description, so that you have that to refer to and to get that to you hopefully before the next meeting. And then at the next meeting, we can refresh your memory on what the projects are and then actually go through the ranking exercise if you like. In terms of timing, I think that would help us the most, because then we could actually, I think that timing would work well for us to pull together a 5-year plan for this budget process, for this budget cycle that's getting ready to start.
Besides those sections of state trust land, and you said there's a little piece of state land over here by that thing. What are other little acquisition pieces that we're talking about? I mean, I would like to know, like, if we were going to buy some stuff, what are we going to buy?
So I think if I can take a stab at that, Robert, I think we've got a good smaller property acquisitions list going with what the commission has already prioritized with the 2004 bond funds.
Okay.
Because I don't think that those remaining funds will be able to fund everything on that list. If that makes sense. And with that Don Wesley Powell forestry corridor being kind of the top priority, that may very well take the rest of those funds. It just might, and I think we need to understand that. But we know that the commission has ranked other properties. And we've kind of been attacking it like, well, if we can't get this one, let's make sure we're working on this one on the side. And that's where the conversation came up at like your last meeting about that Schultz parking area. conversation, and it's looking like that might just be an equal land trade, so maybe we don't have to spend any money on that. But we're moving that forward and getting it done because you prioritized it. But there's other properties that were on that list that, that I think would be the first things for us to look for.
Yeah, that's the direction we can either do this.
Yeah, I think Robert's got another little idea that he showed the little, yellows up on the chart. And, I'm glad we gave one there, I think.
So, in this two-page list that we're going to together for you, is there anything you want to see that we didn't talk about tonight? Maybe we left off the list.
I want to see along the way, connector. Is that Andy definitely just feel really back in the will be the requirement that spread the water and open space that will be the smaller property that we really have to target. Alongside the connector that. So we talk about the big one, right? It's like, I mean, the acres, the really smaller one alongside the we plan for the connector. That we could see it. Okay, because I'm thinking that when you talk for that water. And,
You want to make sure that the list includes like the connector type properties that are more, could potentially more.
right,
And I think it's that. And are you also referencing like that larger, like a wider quarter buffer area? Or is that what you? Yes, and that's the definition of the connectors.
Question, like, the things are falling on the rear flag, and, there's like a grant that's done to follow that. It's not developable up to the rear flag, obviously, because of, water. Do we have to actually buy that land if we wanted to still put a trail next to the rear flag? You know what I mean? Is there a point where there's just undevelopable portion of private property? How do we?
Yeah, you may not be able to go back to answer this one too, but I know Mark has been very successful in aligning the first trail where there are floodplains or floodways or steep hillsides, and that's where they add the buffer. Because those are requirements of the development process, so you can create a greenway corridor kind of along a certain section by changing the trail a little bit. Yeah.
But we may still need to buy an easement so that we have that.
Anything else on this?
Yes, so we're going to move on to the final couple of things here. So, Mike, we're clear on what we're doing with this and move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you for the detailed presentation on both count. So the next item on the agenda is the reports about a section. The first one is Council Representative Deborah Harris.
The council item tonight.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to Commissioner Norton for the Planning and Zoning Commission report.
I was gonna say that there's still an opening on community right now. I think they're trying to fill it in for the next month, so you know, anybody could be interested, please.
But not you.
Not so good.
None of you.
Oh.
Because we have to.
Next is the Open Space Management Report, Robert or Sylvia online.
Yeah, so maybe, or actually, do you want to share briefly about the full movement? Can I read it? Yeah.
The one this month.
Yeah, why don't you just,
I still do it there, so I have to do it myself. I'm sorry. Yeah, we had We did a picture canyon, we did kind of, we did it clockwise, so we started, parking lot and then made sure to go look at the Petroglyph overlook also light. And then kind of made our way down to the Rio de Flag, looked at the petroglyphs there with kind of our red lights, which was really special. And then came back up by kind of the pond over. We had 30 people show up, all adults. And it was a really cool full moon. It was the harvest moon, it was a super moon, there was a partial eclipse, and we were able to see all of that. On our kind of
Yeah.
Wow.
So, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and, lots of education stuff that actually you're doing. And then we've been all making progress on the basic plan for grant, doing for Mesa. We've been treating some of those chip piles I told you earlier. So that's been pretty successful. Sylvia also held a volunteer event up there and do some weed treatment up there. We are working on identifying which of those areas we're gonna restore. We're able to restore, I think, about 31 acres of that grant. So we're gonna do seed bed preparation this fall, and then seeding probably the following fall. So that's a few. So, yeah, good progress there. And then we had a 2-week period where we had a crew do some of the work on the RTP grant, which is mostly restoration. But we're getting ready, everything aligned to do some realignments. So the petroglyph overlook, we're gonna put the stairs there, and we're gonna realign the Waterford trail to be a little further away from the boulders since it's forbidden graffiti there. So that's it's a small portion of the project, but a lot of work because it requires an archaeologist on staff and all that. So, do you have anything else?
Nope, you covered it. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Great. Next item is the pros monthly newsletter from August 2024.
Oh, did you guys get that? Yeah. Okay. Did you have any questions about it?
Yeah, how do you measure trail counts?
Measure what?
Trail counts.
Trail counts, we have trail counters that like read people as they walk or recreate. We have one located, like a couple of them located at Fisher Canyon. We have one over on Mars Hill. So you're kind of dispersed throughout the system. And then Parks has some additional trail counters throughout the region as well.
This is something on the trees and.
Yeah, it's like, it's an infrared, it's a battery operated infrared system.
It's a little tiny box.
Yeah.
Right behind the tree.
Yeah,
Like a
yeah.
little
The Parks designed a really nice foot-looking post that has this little eye in it. They walk right by it.
I saw one, but I thought it was a camera for taking pictures, so I made face.
We do have some,
We have those too, so.
yeah, we do have some cameras mainly for like trying to prevent damage to our preserves.
And that's the whole reason that got rid of it.
Sylvia will laugh at you later when she.
I know that.
Next item is informational items to and from commissioners and staff.
I think that's sort of the waiting with the commission.
Any commissioners have any informational items for
The
staff?
council can inform the DPP on laundry
Oh,
right after the, after this.
I just want to compliment everybody for attending the meeting the other night. That was a lot of work. And
It's great. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm going to. Public meeting, I thought went well. We had over 100 people that came out to it.
How many?
Over 100, I think, probably 120-ish. Yeah, got a lot of feedback and surveys, been getting a lot of feedback as well. That's open to the 18th of October. So if you get out and encourage people to take that, that'd be great.
We'll cancel the next meeting because we'll all have COVID. That's what I thought about asking. Wear a mask.
Let's hope not.
Just to let you know that we have citizen petition submitted to the council that is going to have to come in front of this commission at some point in the future. That is for naming the Fisher Canyon Bridge after Jack Welch, who was a volunteer for open space and I think so made a big impact for open space and parks in the community. So that will be, I believe, on this weekend agenda on October 1st. And if they give it now, if they know that proceed, then it will come to the commissions for their consideration. So
It looks like, Robert, they're doing a beautification grant for that, and it looks like they're gonna hold off until the next grant period, which I think is April.
Great, there's quite a bit of details about it. They're thinking about a plaque for the bridge, but they also want to partner for it, which is great. And Sylvia is mentioning that they might apply for supplementing artists to do like a grant art installation. So that's something that the commission, we want your help to consider that and see if that is a good project or reserve. So that's an important one that they're coming to commission.
It's, I want to let the commission know that it's, the process got a little backwards. Normally this would come to the commission first, and then the commission makes the recommendation about whether it should go to, whether you think it should go to council for consideration or not. This one's a little bit backwards, and we've explained that to them, and they understand that, and they still like to move forward in this way. For staff, it's just kind of adding a layer an extra layer.
Because you have to go
I think
back and then before.
Either way, it's gonna come to the commission, because I think they're gonna, even if council doesn't move the item forward, I think then they'll backtrack and come to the commission. So just so you know that, how the process works.
And then one last thing, and that is, the city council listened to the item for the right of way easement through Observer Mesa coming from Powell the other night. They did give an idea to how to proceed to the state level. So our next step in that will be to put the commission together for the state, and then the private property owners will have to get legal survey likely and maybe an updated plan. And then it'll be in the state's review process, which is mainly the state board to review that and they determine if they want to see that move forward. And then I believe at some point there'll be a state historic preservation office review as well. And then it would, I'm not sure if that will point that would take place in the review process, but eventually you could have to come back to the city for the development of the process.
When you take that back to the city, it goes back to council, to staff, does it get into it?
I'm not sure. We'll figure it out when we get it. Item 1, item 2, we are having an open house for the 3 local ballot initiatives here at the office this Thursday night at 5 o'clock. It's kind of type of thing where it's going to be set up in the lobby for anyone to have information on the BBB tax renewal, the Mountain Line Transit tax renewal increase, and the county on the ballot and expenditure limitation.
Yeah.
Anything else? Information items. All right, that brings us to potential future agenda items. We have the bridge issue that Robert mentioned. Next meeting, we are going to tackle prioritization of what we just had a presentation on. Any other potential future agenda items?
I may not be able to be in person or even remotely next meeting, but if there is a survey, I'd take it before the meeting. Or after, or after.
There are two things that are coming out, just so you know, the Flagstaff Region 2045 update. I believe that will be here next month. I'll have an update on that, so we're going to trail plan feedback for the public. That. We need to think about what we want to do for the November, December meeting dates. Traditionally, because our meetings kind of fall close to the holidays, the commission has elected to combine the November, December meeting into one meeting. Or you could pick 2 different dates, November, December, whatever you want to do. I looked at the 9th of December as a commission date, so maybe you think about that, and that could be on the day as well.
The 9th of November,
December. So that's it.
Great. That brings us to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Matt, moved.
A second,
Second.
all in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.
I'm lucky we get it done by 6:33.
Ish.
We're good at that.
Before we do it.
That's our schedule.
Are you going to 60?
What's that?